Welcome on into GoldSheet TV NFL Week 4 best bets. No hesitation. We're going to get right into it. Do want to just quickly say, though, Newbie and I appreciate the hell out of the comments from the last couple of videos. Keep commenting. Newbie and I love reacting, love hearing you guys' thoughts, opinions, agreements, disagreements. So really, truly appreciate that. Smash that like button. Leave those comments. Let's talk some NFL Week 4 without further ado. We're starting off in not Jacksonville, Wembley Stadium in London for the Jacksonville Jaguars Atlanta Falcons matchup, 9:30 Eastern. So set your alarms earlier this upcoming Sunday. We have football early in the morning. Right now, looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen, of course, all this subject to change during a whim. But Jacksonville, a 3-point favorite. The total sitting at 43.5. And I will mention that yesterday, the Jacksonville Jaguars got steamed up to 3.5. But very, very quickly, that number went right back down to 3, kind of indicating two things. One, that some sharp bettors were on Atlanta plus 3.5, but also that there is two-way action on this game because they're keeping that balance at 3, meaning there's definitely some resistance at Atlanta on the Atlanta side going to 3.5, as well as on the Jacksonville side dropping to 2.5. So, Newbie, talk to me. Falcons, Jags, thoughts, comments, opinions. Let's hear it.
Yeah, and I'm with, if I could have grabbed that 3.5, I would have been all over that as well. It's just the lean here for me towards Atlanta, and I know that you're looking the other way, so I'm looking forward to hearing why. For me, it just comes down to this like mythos that's around the Jacksonville Jaguars playing in London, like they're the home team and they have this big advantage every time they go over there. This is going to be their 10th game in London, and they're 4-5 straight up in those games. So, you can spare me this. They're London's team stuff. I was in London when they lost outright to the Philadelphia Eagles, and these are all different teams, don't get me wrong. But last year when they went to London, pretty decently same constructed team. They lost to the Denver Broncos. Yes, those Denver Broncos of last year, 21-17, lost outright. And in all of the games that they won, the 4 that they have actually gotten done across the pond there, one of them has been by more than 3 points. The other 3, exactly 3 points. So most likely if they do win, you're looking at a push here with just what recent history has said about this team going over to London. The one that they won by margin was when they caught the Denver or the Baltimore Ravens sleeping. They won 44-7. Outside of that, it's been tight games and it's been losses for the Jaguars over in London. And with this Atlanta team, I don't love them, but if you're giving me 3, that's the way that I would be looking in this one.
Yeah, we've talked ad nauseum about the 3 key number, half point. So obviously that number evaporated very quickly. Like that was up for, I don't want to, quote an improper time, but that was not up for very long. It did hit that 3.5.
Yeah.
And I saw some sharp groups actually get in and get that out. And now it's sitting at straight 3. But I'm with you here on this being a complete lean. I'm not going to be laying 3 points with the Jacksonville Jaguars right now. Again, listen to anything I've been saying since the beginning of the summer is that I was low and bearish on the Jags this upcoming season. However, from a matchup perspective, this does seem like a game that the Jaguars should win. Rushing defense for the Jaguars is actually good. And as we know and as we've seen the first 3 weeks is that Desmond Ridder in a drop-back passing game absolutely cannot even hang with Jared Goff, let alone hang with Trevor Lawrence in the Jacksonville passing attack. On the other hand, the Atlanta Falcons defense, while I knew they were going to be improved this season because they spent a lot of money on improving that defense, they did have great players in Grady Jarrett and AJ Terrell already, has actually shown to be as advertised. So I'm expecting this to be a close-knit game where the 3 is going to come into play because the Atlanta Falcons have a very big edge in the special teams here. Not something you always think about, but Young Wei-Koo, one of the best kickers in football, and you have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who last week allowed a major kickoff return to not even the returner, to a fullback in the kicking game, and they've also had a kick blocked, and that's something to always consider. Talent for talent, pound for pound, though, I still think the Jaguars are the better football team, which is why I think the line makes sense. However, again, not laying the 3 because of those kind of faults that I see. I would lean toward Jacksonville money line. I think that is a worthwhile bet to make if you're getting around minus 150. And being the true degenerate that I am, obviously always give out to the clients and to the fans plus EV wagers. But I do take a money line parlay every single week, and I will do that every single week, honestly. But the Jaguars just on the money line is a look for me as a legitimate play. Don't get me wrong. I'm not just spewing this. and will probably be in a money line parlay. Newbie, any last thoughts here? Or, I could obviously see your side, and, the spread is what it is. Just any last comments here?
Yeah, I mean, what's the over under of how many minutes you watch the stream on Disney Plus where they're going to be the Toy Story characters around? Do we even have like 1.5 minutes? You're gonna pop that thing on, because I am a little bit intrigued by that. I'll be honest with you.
Toy Story 2 is my second favorite movie of all time, behind Casino. So I will definitely be tuning in to the Toy Story. That is my
lock of the century.
Older,
bet the over of minutes watched for sure.
I watched that commercial all on whatever it was, like on Monday Night Football. I saw the commercial 10 times between the two games, and I was just sitting there looking around like, Toy Story NFL collab? Like, this is what a young Eric would have dreamed
Beautiful.
of. But should be a great football game, though. Great as in a close game. You could see some ugliness over the seas, but I see your points on the Falcons with the points, as well as I think the matchup does slightly favor the Jaguars, though, in a money line situation.
Agreed.
Moving on, though, to another matchup, an intriguing one. We have the Minnesota Vikings headed into Carolina to take on the Panthers. Now, it looks like Bryce Young will be suiting up and playing for this game. And for the second week in a row with Bryce Young news, the market has reacted negatively to Bryce Young. Last week, the line went from 6 to 4.5 when Bryce Young was ruled out, because the market showed faith in Dalton. And that faith was real, was justified. Dalton was slinging the football. The Panthers shot themselves in the foot. We discussed this at nauseam on Tuesday, but a game the Panthers should have at least covered last week, ended up not doing so. And then now Bryce Young this week, the line was sitting 2.5, went to 3 pretty quickly, and then with that news is now sitting at a pretty steady 4 across the board. Vikings, both teams 0-3. We saw the regression. They were 11-0 or whatever they were in one-score games last year, 0-3 this year. Regression, just doing what regression does. I have a thought here on this matchup, Newbie, but going to you first. Any just general thoughts on this matchup? Something you're staying away from? Any leans, or what are you viewing here?
Yeah, I know that the Carolina Panthers are an ugly dog that some people are going to want to make a case for. But for me, I think if I'm playing in this game, I'm laying with the Minnesota Vikings, simply because just think of how both of these teams probably look at this spot. Both of them sitting at 0-3. Obviously, you're already talking about being, if you just look at historical trends, eliminated from playoff contention. So which team still would feel like, hey, we have some playoff aspirations? Think about what we did last year. The Panthers kind of knew coming into this year that, if they could stack up some wins, great. But it's a rebuilding year for the Panthers. Let's be real. And that's why they're rushing Bryce Young back. They want to see their rookie being showcased, as opposed to just seeing Andy Dalton out there slinging it around in the latter part of his career. So when I just think about what team would be more poised to respond in a spot like when you're in an 0-3 hole, it's going to be a team that has a head coach in Kevin O'Connell, who, again, these it's not like they're getting blown out. It's not like they're getting destroyed in games. They could have rolled over against the Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday Night Football, but the Vikings, towards the end of the game, fought back and made that a push, even cashed for some bettors who grabbed the hook in that game. So I just think, as far as team expectation versus who would be more prepared to be in a bounce back role in an 0-3 caca game, I think it plays towards the guys in purple. So it's a lean towards me for the Minnesota Vikings. I'm sure the people already are copping in the comments being like, do we have any actual bets on this show? You guys are only talking leans. They're coming. But for me, if I'm playing in this game, I'm laying with the Minnesota Vikings.
It's just one of those things, too. Like I told you the other day, Newbie, like I got in the Vikings -2.5 Monday morning while I was writing the GoldSheet, breaking down that matchup. I was like, okay, 2.5. I bet it immediately. Go to my kitchen to make a cup of coffee, come back, 3.5 painted everywhere. So I was not able to get that to any clients of mine. I'll sit here with my CLV trophy, not to brag, as we are here to give you actionable information. That's the whole point of everything. But enough said, I lean the Vikings in this matchup. 4 is just tough because you have a team, the Vikings, that just refuse to win football games by margin. Kirk Cousins on the road outdoors, tough to trust with margin. However, this Panthers defense got the reason why they got so blown out against the Seahawks was injuries. Like, their injuries are now piling up. Shaq Thompson, of course, went down. A couple of J.C. Horn already was down, and then they lost a couple of other defensive back pieces in this defense that is the strength of this team, that are now going to probably miss this game against the Vikings. Also, Bryce Young is now playing. We know that he has not looked comfortable. And while the Vikings are not a team that's generating any pressure whatsoever without blitzing, and even when blitzing, aren't generating pressure, it's just a bad matchup for Carolina because Kirk Cousins has actually been slinging the ball all over the place. And all this talk, and it's true, they're 0-3 and the variance is hit. But you're talking about variance, you're talking crazy variance. Like the Vikings in the red zone, I don't have the exact number, I missed it, but they have turned it over, I think, twice already this year on their own 1 yard line. Like, that's the same way that they finally regressed back from last season. Like, there has to be an even out. Like, they're seeing two ends of the spectrum completely like on the opposite ends. So there's going to have to be a middle there somewhere. Heavy lean on the Vikings with the 4. Again, I have that 2.5, so I'm not dying to go out and bet the 4. Of course, it's over that 3, but just in that money line parlay that I'll be running, Vikings are certainly in it. And I will go as far as to be saying that now my Survivor League that I'm in, we had buybacks week 1 through 3, so I was able to, get a little cute and pick some bad teams because I could just buy back in and lose 2 bad teams. But now this week, buybacks are over, and I am taking the Minnesota Vikings as my Survivor pick this week. Just another tale of how confident I am in them. Yes, I think that the battle of the 0-3, yes, it's the home dog, but I think the Vikings are the better football team in many facets. The variance has come back in a terrible way, but in a way where it can only get better for Minnesota. Injuries piling up for Carolina, and then Bryce Young again. I'm not ready to say that he's going to beat a bad defense, but I am in on the Vikings this weekend. Moving on, Philadelphia, Washington. I'm sure the Eagles will be a very popular Survivor pick this weekend. At recording on WagerTalk Live Odds Screen, we have the Birds laying 8 mostly across the board, and the total of 43 or 43.5. We already discussed this on Tuesday's show, how I love Philly as a teaser leg, but newbie, do you see more than just a teaser leg for Philly?
Yeah, it's a no-brainer teaser leg, and I think, if we're looking to something to grade it with, I think I'm going to tie a lot of teasers into taking Seattle up on Monday Night Football before that line gets moving. I know that we've already seen some movement there, so I think that would probably be what I would be pairing this with. But it's funny because the 2 games that we're about to talk about here in this Philadelphia and Washington game, and then the Rams and Indianapolis Colts game, it's the tale of 2 different stories because I came into this Eagles game thinking I had a lean that's now turned into a play for me. And we'll talk about the Rams game. It was a game I thought I had a play in that then turned into a lean and a stay away for me. So a little teaching point coming up here. But the reason why, when I started capping this game, I've arrived that Eagles -8 is a play for me because we can say what we want about the lackluster start for the Birds, but they're winning games. And a lot of that is due to credit of Jalen Hurts, who is 20 wins in his past 21 regular season starts. The one loss, against this Washington Commanders team on Monday Night Football. One of the biggest issues for the Commanders last week, when all the cracks in the armor started to show, was getting to 3rd down against the Bills. Only converted 1 time on 3rd down and 4th down on the 10 chances that they had. And they are only behind the New York Jets, are worse than the Commanders on their 3rd down rate. And what makes us think that the Commanders are going to win 1st and 2nd down against this Philadelphia Eagles front? What the Eagles are doing is unreal. Jalen Carter, as I mentioned, the steal of the draft, he's looking like early. He's already the odds-on favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year. And, I love throwing in my trends, especially when it makes sense. And that's the Eagles being the best in the league as home favorites. Since Nick Sirianni came to town, 10-3-2 against the number. That's 77% as home favorites. They average a margin of victory in those games just over or just shy of 12 points per game, covering the spread on 4.5 points on average in those games. Some of those games with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. So it started as a lean. I love the teaser leg, but I think you can lay the 8 in this one as well. That's the way that I'm going to be betting this one, EP.
Yeah, and I'm with you. As, again, a Commander fan, I touted the Birds -1.5, -2.5 in a teaser. I have them in a couple of combinations this week. They're a team I've doubled down on. I do see some arguments for Washington maybe covering the 8 because the Philadelphia Eagles pass defense has been atrocious now. I know that they have missed a couple of key players in 2 of those games, and they played a hot passing team in Minnesota in that game, just skewing the numbers just a little bit there. But what I am finding very hard for Washington to overcome is they're letting Sam Howell work through his mistakes, which is a great thing to do for a young quarterback. However, he's still going to make those mistakes. And now you have the Buffalo Bills defensive front who sacked Howell 9 times and forced 4 interceptions. And the Bills defensive front is great, but it's nowhere near as good as the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't see how Ron Rivera is going and Eric Bieniemy are going to put together a game plan to slow this down. Now, I will say Washington has one of the better rushing attacks of any team the Eagles have faced so far this season, which might be able to, put a little bit of balance there. But I'm just not convinced that even if Washington is throwing the football more because they are one of the highest teams in pass rate over expected, that they're just somehow is going to all of a sudden, again, bounce back and start picking apart this Philadelphia Eagles defense. We saw basically that little bit of progression from weeks 1 to 2 because he had played in a monsoon against Arizona and he didn't really throw the ball that well. But then week 2, it's like, oh, wow, he beat the Broncos, who looked great. And then we find out the Broncos let him 70 points in week 3 and that defense is terrible. So hard for me to really get there with Washington, but I do see the side for them at least covering maybe the 8 because, of course, that's a lot of points to lay. Key numbers of 7 and 8 right there and a divisional matchup. But note, not going to do the full breakdown because I do have an anytime touchdown video on WagerTalk TV. But in this matchup, I think it's a great matchup to target Jahan Dotson. He has not had a touchdown all season. I've mentioned how the Birds have struggled against wide receivers so far this season. Dotson yet to find pay dirt. And again, the fact that they're letting Bieniemy and co are letting Howell work through his mistakes, he's going to get opportunities to throw the football. And Dotson, currently number 1 in Washington in snaps played at the wide receiver position and tied number 1 in targets. So a guy who was so crucial for them in scoring touchdowns, I think, has a good matchup to maybe find pay dirt with a total of 43.5 that I think might even be a tick low for across the country. Supposed to be 70 and sunny all weekend. So we should be hopefully seeing some offense this weekend, Newbie.
Yeah, and tying in with seeing some offense, I think the Eagles see their offense flex their muscle a little early in this game. And one of the bets that I have as well is the Eagles first half team total. I think the Eagles can score 2 touchdowns. I think they get them through the uprights, and it's sitting at 13.5. I know a lot of people, you check out Bet on It here on the channel. Our own Joe Ranieri is on the Eagles laying the 5.5 in the first half. If they're looking to cover that number, means they're probably going to be scoring some points. And I'm with Eric. I think this total is a little low, and I think because of it, you're getting a number that should be 14.5. I think that's probably what they end up with is around 14 points. So getting a half point of value with a team that is going to look to flex their muscle early and show, hey, maybe the offensive struggles are a little bit over-exaggerated. I think it's a fine bet to go over the Eagles' first half team total at 13.5 points. That's the other play I have in this game.
Yeah, we saw Josh Allen, his mobility really gets to the Commanders. We've seen for the last couple of seasons, mobile quarterbacks, like even the Daniel Joneses of the world, do get to the Washington Commanders pretty decently. So, unfortunately, as a Commanders fan, I do think this is a spot to look in the Eagles as a teaser, like without hesitating, honestly, and can see the case for them to bet them in a couple of different ways. And also with Jahan Dotson, touchdown plus 350 for this kind of guy, I think is a tick low as well. But moving on, we have 3 more games to cover. We want to get to some big games as well just to talk, but we're heading to Indianapolis. Look at the Colts. Looks like Richardson is going to be playing. Right now, the number is sitting at a PK, basically, total on the WagerTalk Live odds screen, 46. So we're looking at some points to potentially be scored in Indy. I know, Newbie, you had a look that is kind of off the board now. You're looking at teasing up the Rams, and now there's no value in that. But what was your thought process here? Because for me, at just a straight PK, I have a lean toward the Colts here.
Yeah, and I feel like that is where I'm kind of glad that this play ended up flipping because I was able to, CLV trophy, whatever. I do have them in a teaser leg, and it's paired with the Eagles. It's something that we talked about on Tuesday's show. So if you grab that, great. We'll sweat it out together. I understand why the market has moved down to pick them. However, as I was handicapping this game, a look that I thought was really strong, looking at initial numbers, started to really make me realize that my whole handicap was hinging on Matt Stafford. And that's not something I want, is trying to explain why Matt Stafford is going to be in a bounce back role. Could he be? Sure. But the only reason that kind of led me towards it was because there was a DeForest Buckner did not practice during yesterday's game. So, okay, maybe there won't be as much pass rush, but the Colts are going to send the blitz. And the issue for me is Matt Stafford has shown if you get to him, it is curtains. There isn't any, let's alleviate, let's get him out on bootlegs, let's do this, let's do that. No, if he's sitting back in the pocket and he's getting hit, it's over. And I think the Colts have the potential to do that. Look at how they were able to stymie Lamar Jackson, who's certainly a little bit more mobile than Matt Stafford. So the thing that does give me some optimism is even with as bad as things went offensively in the game against the Bengals, who needed that win, don't get me wrong, still Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell were able to put up some respectable performances. So I think even when there's a good pass rush and even when Matt Stafford's getting stymied a little bit, you're still able, and your two rookie sensations, so, I don't think that's hyperbole to say with what they're doing here early in the year. It's very impressive. So I think they were still able to have some output. So points should still stack up just because the Colts ended up beating and slowing down that pass attack for the Ravens that still doesn't look right. I still think you're looking at a pretty bad pass defense here. Money has moved, as Eric said, taking this down to a pick 'em, even seeing the Rams favored in some spots. So with that line movement, it's a stay away for me. Again, I think it's a good teaching moment that once you really don't just see a number and bet it right away unless you don't think that number is going to be there, because see a number, identify value, have it, break down how you like betting on games and how it works into however you power rate or however you handicap. But once you start handicapping a game, look for what the truth tells you. Don't just look for stats that back up your side that make you feel better about your bet, because maybe now I'm staying off of a loser because when I started capping, I realized it wasn't as strong as I once felt it was. So don't just blindly play numbers. While yes, it's all about getting numbers, once you start looking back and breaking down the matchup for yourself, sometimes you'll save yourself. And some of the best bets you're going to make are the bets you don't make. So a nice little teaching moment between two games that led me towards a play and took me off a play. It all had to go with how the process went for me. So maybe a little loaded there, Eric, to say trust the process as a Sixers fan here. But trust in the process for me maybe saved me from a losing bet here. So just a lean for me on the Rams at the pick'em price. But I could easily see the case that you're going to make for the Colts as well after the cap.
Like you said, I think you made some great points just from like a process and handicapping standpoint. So that's part of the game. Like you're going to be betting on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in the NFL. Like you're going to get some closing line value that hopefully then transpires to a winner. And the market might actually disagree with you in some instances. And while that's not the best thing you want to see, you'd prefer to see market agreement, doesn't necessarily mean you're holding a losing ticket. So I think that's a great point because like I mentioned, I got the Vikings 2.5. I got the news I was expecting to see. Now we're sitting 4, so I'm feeling good about that ticket. But in the other vein, like if you're betting NFL sides on Sunday when the limits are $100,000 and the sharpest sports books in the world are willing to take $100,000 plus from anybody, then maybe adjust the action if it's a really sharp bet, or it's a bunch of Joe Schmoes. They don't give a crap who they're betting. They're just taking their money and saying good luck. So you do have to be betting early in the NFL with a major market. Anybody betting on Sunday sides at 10:30 Eastern, waking up, rolling over, opening FanDuel, and just gambling, you're not going to win long term. Like it's just not going to happen. And part of the risk of betting early is you're going to maybe see some market resistance in certain situations, but it's all in the game. It's all part of gambling. You do it more often and you actually align on the right side and you do get more market support, you should ideally be cashing more tickets over the long term, which is what it's about. It's not just about how you did in week 1 or week 4 or week 6. It's how you did in the 2023 NFL season. So great teaching point there. Sorry for a little bit of digression, but back to the Colts Rams. So the biggest thing about the Rams, obviously they were terrible last year. Everyone expected them to just be terrible again. But the same reasons why the Rams were terrible last year were going to be the same reasons why they're going to be bad this year. And that is due to lack of depth. The Rams were built as a team that, they said, screw all the picks. They're filled of rookies, undrafted rookies, low draft pick rookies, and some star-studded talent. And once those big, good players get hurt, that is when the Rams are going to struggle. Last week, we saw 2 offensive linemen go down for the Rams on Monday. And what happened then? Matthew Stafford couldn't have a second to collect his thoughts in that pocket before he was getting attacked by a very good, not great, amazing, but very good Bengals defensive front. Now you had a similar defensive front in the Indianapolis Colts who will be able to hopefully pressure Stafford, who will now potentially be missing 2 offensive linemen. And as we know with the Rams, they have no depth. once those linemen went out, Stafford was on the run for the whole game, and these guys might not play this week, and the Colts should have the advantage in that situation. Also, a lot of discourse about a team like the LA Rams who were on primetime on the East Coast on Monday night. Short week now, still on the East Coast in Indianapolis, playing a game at 1 p.m. Eastern. Those situations have not panned out well for said road team on the short week from the West Coast. So expecting some potential lackluster play from the Rams due to that fatigue, due to that short week, and then adding in injuries to the offensive line. Not a recipe for success, in my opinion, for the Rams. And Richardson will be under center. It looks like Steichen, to me, 3 weeks in, looking like the coach of the year. Not saying to like it's a lock or anything like that, but looking like what he's done with the Colts, the improvement, the skill set that he brings to the table seems to be a massive improvement. So again, Stafford, McVay, great, but I'm leaning toward the Colts, and that'll be something that either makes the client card after we see this report on the injuries for the offensive line, something that I would definitely highly consider Indianapolis Colts on the money line there. 2 more games we want to get to, running low on time, so we're going to get this one quick because this is another game of leans. Now, again, full packages are given on WagerTalk.com for the GoldSheet. Me and the team, our best bets, we have 3 loaded, are already up there on WagerTalk.com. Give out a couple of them for free, but that's just the way of the business. We have to keep some under wraps there. But Tampa Bay, New Orleans, a game that the Saints have dominated this series, even with Tom Brady in the building. Obviously, Tom Brady is gone. But in terms of personnel and coaching outside of Brady, most of these are pretty stagnant from year to year. These teams always flow against the under. These teams play each other tight, and the Saints dominate the series. Jameis Winston came in relief, did not put up any points, but he actually looked pretty good, and I don't think he's a major downgrade over Derek Carr whatsoever, probably slight. Number is basically 3,120 across the board, so it's dying to get to 3.5, but just won't get there just yet. I lean Saints, and I lean under, given the strength of these two teams really being their defense. Newbie, you to talk me out of any of those, or kind of just agree, disagree? Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's just a sheer pass for me. I mean, the injury report does not look good for the New Orleans Saints, but let's be real, it doesn't look good for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers either. So with so many different question marks, who's going to be under center for this Saints team? For me, it's a stay away, but I do like that look towards the under. I think, you always potentially get a little bit inflated of a total when you're playing there in New Orleans because you think about, the video game numbers that used to be put up when Drew Brees and this team were just blowing people away at home. Those days are long gone. I'm with you. Lean towards the under, but I think there's some better opportunity on the board that doesn't have, around 7 players for each team listed as did not practice on the injury report. So it's a stay away for me. But even with that injury report, I think that bolsters the look towards the under as well.
Yeah, the Buccaneers injury report is why I lean Saints in the 3 because their depth is virtually non-existent. They're very, very thin on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah. And again, I think Winston is good. Not that big of a downgrade from Carr, so I think he will be able to move the football. And then the Saints defense for the last couple of seasons, like you said, everyone was used to Drew Brees and this amazing offense. Yeah. But, as everybody should be able to have seen, this defense holds teams to under 20 points virtually weekly. Dennis Allen is a defensive head coach, and he's been with the program now. He was the interim coach from the era, so he great defensive mind. And the number has ticked down to now 39.5, which is tough when it was 40.5. Obviously, love. And NFL is a game of inches in terms of the spread. Obviously, in terms of on the field, it is. But these little bit of half points and 1 points are not little bits. These are major things to consider. So while, again, Newbie and I would love to give you actionable information that you can watch and bet yourself, the market moves, on a whim, and there are certain things to keep in mind, key numbers, key injury information, so on and so forth. So another thing to keep in mind there. Newbie and I always stick into 5 games, but today we have a 6th and final because it's the game of the week. How could we not discuss this matchup? Miami Buffalo. Newbie, talk to me. We have a track meet on our hands, total of 53.5, or are we going to see a little bit more of a bunker down, teams that know each other kind of situation, or how are you viewing this one? Because this is the game of not only the week, but potentially could be the game of the season, even though it's only week 4.
Yeah, and the market surely thinks there's going to be some points. I mean, this thing's up almost 5.5 points from the opener. Now we're sitting around 54 as the total in this matchup, and I think that's the result of scoring 70 points. But honestly, the only reason that this game ended up as a little bonus game here for you is because of what the viewers of this show did in the comments on the Tuesday edition. We absolutely love chopping it up with you guys. We love it when you're like, what, are you guys on drugs? Are you crazy with some of the takes we drop? We know we get a little spicy, but we love hopping below in those comments with you and hearing what your best bets are. So if you're tuning in, regardless of when you're doing it, hop below, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and chop it up with us in the comments. We love the disagreement. We love the agreement. We just love hearing from you below. And with what you did in the comments, we had to talk this Bills and Dolphins game because, in my opinion, Eric, this is the pros versus Joes game of the year. You talk about the people who wake up and bet on Sunday. There is not one person in the world that is a Sunday bettor that's going to be looking to get down on this game that, wakes up, goes, grabs a six-pack, gets ready for the games. They're going to open up their app and see what there's plus next to the Miami Dolphins. I think you're going to have a lot of Miami Dolphins money line bettors in this game. I think you're going to have a lot of money or bettors on the spread. I think you might see some people on alt lines getting the Dolphins up and over a field goal. I think there's going to be every which way that the Joes, so to speak, are betting the Dolphins. But let's be real, what I talked about on Tuesday, it's not like the Joes haven't been winning this year. The pros went 0-5 in their favorite plays last week. So let's not act like the Joes don't win too. But really the crux of the issue for me here is the question that you have to answer in this game is, how does Buffalo slow down this Dolphins attack? And it's easier said than done. And if they do slow it down, they could potentially be trying to do it without Micah Hyde, without Jordan Poyer, without their defensive end and Leonard Floyd. All of them are guys who didn't practice on Wednesday. Teron Johnson was limited with a hip injury as well, and that's their cornerback. So how do they slow them down? I don't have the answer, which is why this game is going to be a sheer pass for me. I'm not betting either side because I could see the case for each. I could see the case that this is a divisional game, but even so, it's usually a shootout when these two teams play against each other. And the total indicates that. I do have a play that I like in this game. It's a player prop that I'll be dropping. But before that, I just want to get your thoughts on, I agree with you. I wish that they would be able to flex. The only reason that they haven't moved the Chiefs and Jets out is because Taylor Swift is going to be in the building, man. Like, this should be the Sunday night football game. This is absurd that I'm going to have to channel surf and find this one. I think it's crazy because everyone who is a football fan is going to be glued to their set for this one.
Zach Wilson might be the most viewed quarterback on a Sunday night football game of not just this season, but of the 2020s. Just because Taylor Swift is going to be in the audience, at least Patrick Mahomes will be in that.
And it works out for him because the demographic that's going to be tuning in is like that single mom demographic. So you know that Zach Wilson's going to be excited about the new eyes on the product for sure.
We saw Travis Kelce's jersey sales go up 400%. We might see Zach Wilson's go up as well. Probably not because of performance, though, as we know from Zach Wilson. But the kid has got it going on. But like you said, I agree. This could be a pros versus Joes, and I am not going to bet this football game. Maybe I'll take a prop if I do find something there, but I would bet the Miami Dolphins. I say this again, I'll gladly be on the wrong side. Like, I know a lot of sharp people, like you said, they're going to be looking at this game like, how do you back a team or how do you not fade a team that just scored 70? Obviously, you can't replicate that. You can't score the second most points and have the second most yards in NFL history and then repeat that performance, especially against the Buffalo Bills team that looks to be elite. I know they lost to the Jets. Guess what? Josh Allen sucks against the Jets historically, right? It's just a thing. Like, some players have a thing. Like, it just happens to be a thing for Josh Allen. Him and the Jets, playing the Jets, do not get along. I lean Miami because in those matchups last season, there were always close games, even when they were playing in Buffalo in late December, early January in the playoffs, with Skylar Thompson losing by 3+ points. Now you have Tua Tagovailoa, who is one of the more accurate passers in football. You have Devin Nutt kid. And you also have the motivation factor. The Buffalo Bills have dominated you between the playoffs last year. Now you get to go up there without any of the conditions. It should be a beautiful day in Orchard Park. And you have this offensive attack that just looks incredible. On the flip side, devil's advocate with you, I do not believe that this this Dolphins defense is that good. I think it could even be not just worse than the middle of the pack. It could be one of the lower level, bottom second half percentile defenses in the NFL. But I just gun to head, Miami Dolphins should be a hell of a football game. Two absolute powerhouses and two teams that you can make the argument. Both of them are top 5 teams in the entire NFL. Like, honestly, without probably debate, like these at the moment, power ratings wise, these are two of the top 5 teams in football.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And we can't talk about this game without making it a little bit fun. So if the lean towards you is for the Dolphins for you, the lean for me will be towards the Buffalo Bills. And we can have people hop below in the comment. How are you going to be betting this game? And also, we'll do a little fun side wager. It won't be an official play for either of us, but one of us will have to do something if our team does not cover. What are we graded at? The 2.5 or the 3? I know you want to get the 3. I want to get the 2.5. So do we just go money line? Do we just throw the spread out of it and go money line?
That was literally my next question. I was like, I'm doing this if I'm getting the 3, and I know you want the 2.5. Let's do money line. Screw it.
All right, so money line it is. Hop below in the comments. Are you riding with newbie? Are you riding with EP? And what should loser have to do? We'll do something for you fun on air or a Twitter video, something like that. We'll have a little fun with this one. Hop below in the comments and let us know. The play for me in this one, though, I'm going Josh Allen over 35.5 pass attempts in this one. In his 3 games against the Miami Dolphins last year, he had 63 attempts in the first game, 40 in the second, 39 in the playoffs. And if the handicap in this game is how do the Buffalo Bills keep up with the Dolphins, it's not going to be by playing clock control, because this Dolphins offense can score with the 2-play drive. Like you can try and keep the ball away from them, but really the way to beat them is go blow for blow with them. So even in that game last week, he had 32 pass attempts, and it was a game that he really didn't have to pass in against the Commanders. He's gone over this number 2 times this year. The only he didn't was against the Commanders, which is why I think this isn't 36.5. Grab it at 35.5. I think this one goes up. Josh Allen over on pass attempts is the play for me. But we also got the head-to-head little money line shuffle that you and I got going on here. So it'll be fun. Hop below in the comments and let us know which side you're rocking with.
Let us know and hit that like button for the content Newbie and I are doing. We really appreciate you guys, and keep chirping in the comments. We love going back and forth. Recap of the show: Jacksonville, Atlanta. Newbie leaning Atlanta plus the points. I lean Jacksonville money line. I don't want to lay 3. Miami, Carolina. Minnesota, Carolina. Minnesota, a teaser leg. I'm losing my notes here. Minnesota, a survivor pick for me. Laid the 2.5. Might still lay the 4. Newbie likes the Birds minus the 8. I love anything Philly in a teaser. Rams, Colts. If the Rams do come back down to 1.5, Newbie likes them to be teased up. I am leaning heavily toward the Colts PK. Tampa Bay, New Orleans. Heavy leans on the under, and gun to head New Orleans on that money line. And then Miami, I got the Miami Dolphins on the money line. Newbie's got the Buffalo Bills on the money line. Let us know below how you want us to settle that score after whatever happens on Sunday. Appreciate you guys. Like this video, comments below. Shout out to our producer Robo, and thank you for everything. Until next time, best of luck with your bets this weekend. Hopefully we'll see you at the counter, and we'll see you guys Tuesday with more hot takes in the NFL.